Hey guys, welcome to another episode of LFA Shop. This week we're working on a John Cooper Works Mini. It's a 2003 R50. We're going to replace a wheel bearing and hopefully that's all. So this is the Mini that we're going to be working on today. So this belongs to my cousin and she wants me to fix it and sell it. So I need to fix it, which is the wheel bearing issue. And we've got some brake pad sensors as well because we've got a fault for that. But this is a John Cooper Works Cooper S. So it's got the supercharged engine and it is a 6-speed manual and 2003. So it's pretty fun, pretty fast for what it is, but we just needed a wheel bearing. So I did this one this morning. Let's jump on that side and show you what you need to do. Alright, so before anyone asks, this is not my workshop. This is the mate Luke. So Flat Top Garage on Facebook, I assume, but he's the guy that runs Flat Top Towing. He's churning into like buy and sell and wreck stuff out like he used to, and he's also diving into secondhand cars and fixing them up. So if you want a new secondhand car with warranty or a loan or anything like that, hit up Flat Top Garage. Or if you want parts off of whatever BMW that is, hit him up. So first step is to jack up the car. These things are super awkward because they're kind of low. So I'll get it in the air and I'll show you where to jack it from. And then I'll put a jack stand underneath it and get this wheel off. So we're in the driver's wheel arch here. So I've got a jack stand under the subframe there. And then at the front I've jacked off the very front of the subframe. So there's 2 bolts that go up into the subframe there that hold the front half of the car on. So don't go any further forwards than there. That's pretty much the only spot I can reach. But you could get a jack under the side and lift off the subframe if you can get in there. So that's how I would do it. I don't know if you guys want to do it the same way, but that's what I'm here for. So before I get started, I just want to show you the tools. So I've got a T50 Torx bit, a nice soft blow hammer, 16mm for the brake calipers, just a breaker bar in general, a ratchet in general, and then 2 different size extensions. They come in handy for undoing the back of the hub. 2 pairs of pliers for the sensor, and then a 13mm and a 32mm. Then we got some WD-40 essentially, just some penetrant. We've got the brake pad sensor, which is that part number. So that thing just goes into the brake pad and tells it when it's getting close to the disc, and then it threads in through into the inner arch. So they're a bit painful, but not too bad. And then obviously the wheel bearing, which that's the part number there. This is Pro Train. It's a full assembly and you can just bolt it straight onto the knuckle, which is pretty handy. So let's get into this. So first off, I've cracked this bolt here, which just holds the disc to the hub. Then there's 2 bolts on the back of the caliper, they're 16, so they're both loose already. So I'll undo that, undo this guy and get this brake disc off, and then we can undo the hub. Okay, so that's pretty simple, and we can get the caliper sitting up top here, so there's no need to tie that up, because it won't be hanging on the brake line. So then there's these 4 bolts in here. So I'm going to spray them with penetrant before I get started. You got to get in from the back of the knuckle, they're 13mm. Crack those off, and you also have to take this off, which is a 32mm. Let's ooga-doog this off, and then I'll get the 13 in the back of there and get the whole hub assembly off. I also brought my rattle gun because it's mega handy. So we're pretty lucky here in Australia. These CV shafts and stuff don't really get rusty into the hub, but if you're in a wet or salty climate you might have trouble getting that out. So put the nut back on a little bit and then just belt it with a hammer. It should go out nicely, or do what someone else has done by the looks of it and put a punch in that hole and hit it away. So this is pretty loose, and now I'll get to the 13mm on the back. So they're pretty awkward. I'll try and film them as best I can, but there are these 4 bolts here, so on the back of the hub there. So I found a long extension on this top one helps. So the brake caliper side is probably one of the easier ones. The not brake caliper side is a little trickier. So probably the best way I can show you is on the selfie cam. So there's one in there, one down the bottom there, which is probably one of the easier ones to get to. And then on the other side you've got one at the top there, which you can't really see because it's stuck behind this big piece here. So that's probably the hardest one. And then there's one down here. So awkward to show, but they are 13mm. So I've got all 4 hub bolts cracked loose. They're not out yet, but they're loose. So 13mm, long extension, and just a breaker bar. So I'll get the ratchet in there and we should all be smooth sailing from here. Alright, so with those 4 bolts out, you can see the back of the hub all slides off nicely. So now we'll just get the new one. and reverse the process. Okay, so I got those 4 bolts back in. So they're the 13mm ones. You want to make sure these are really tight because obviously they hold your wheel on, which is why I've got the breaker bar. So make sure you get a good amount of torque on those guys and just do them up. So we'll put this nut back on and then we can put the brakes back on. Now the thing to note with these is this is the flat spot here, so you want to line it up with that groove there, or you can hit it back in, but it depends if you're using a new drive shaft or not. So I'll try and get this to go around that a little bit more, and you can see the hub is spinning. So what I'm going to do is put 2 bolts, one in either of those holes, and then hold a spanner or a hammer or whatever and just hold it nice and still and do it up some more. Alright, so I got the nut nice and tight, and then you just want to hit it and stake in this little corner where that gap in the drive shaft is. So chuck the brakes back together, chuck the brakes back on, and then I'll investigate into this brake sensor. Alright, that's all back together, so now I just need to put the wheel on and the wheel bearing is done. But I want to find out what's going on with this brake sensor first. So Sprint said that I needed 2, one for either side, so I'll have to dive under here. I know the other one was under here. Hopefully we can find out where it went, and hopefully that gets rid of the light. If not, the other one might be for the back, so we shall see. So we've had a quick look, and it looks like the only other brake sensor is on this corner. So there's one on that corner and one on this corner. So maybe the brake pads in the back are worn down, but it seems like the fronts have plenty of meat, so I'm not 100% sure what to do there. So I'll chuck this guy back on and I'll have a look at the back. So it's a new day here on the Mini. I ran out of time the other day at Luke's place to do this rear wheel sensor, so I'm going to chuck it up, chuck it on some jack stands, climb under there and try and replace this rear brake pad sensor. So the one I took out, it's still hanging under there. I've just pulled it out of the back of the caliper. It has broken through, so I'll show you that. But the new one obviously isn't, so hopefully the pads have got enough life on them and we can just replace the sensor and that issue will go away. So let's get this thing in the air and I'll show you what I'm working with. So this is the new brake pad sensor. I showed the part number at the start and I've lost the packaging since. So the old one is just here, already unplugged, and you can see hopefully that is worn through on that little knob there. And then the new one has not, so it's got no mark on it or anything. So I'm pretty sure this one's busted. So the idea is to now trace that back. It goes underneath the side skirt over there, and I'll put the new one in and plug it back into the pads. And yes, this is on a jack stand, and I do have a jack. So I'm going to probably have to crawl under here, so I'll get another jack stand. But I'll rip this one out and then I'll show you the 2 side by side. So I got a side by side here on the right hand side there. You can see that one's been touching the rotor and is all worn down. And then on the left hand side, nice new fresh one. So I've noticed the length is a little different and the end is a little bit different. So I'm hoping this is the right one. It might be a second front sensor, which would be really annoying. So we'll see if we can get this in the car. So the plug, which is that guy, is just in front of this rear wheel where that jack stand is on the floor. So I'll try and chuck the new sensor in and hopefully that's the end of the problems. So that sensor did fit. It was pretty tight, but it does reach just. Let's have a look and see if we've still got errors on the dash. So it was that orange one that we were trying to get rid of, and it looks like it's done nothing. So that's awesome. I'll jump in, see if we can make it do anything. So foot on the pedal, no difference. Handbrake off, no difference. Sweet. That's not done at all what I wanted. I've got one more trick up my sleeve. So if this doesn't work, it's going to have to stay, but I am confident that the brakes are good now. I've checked them, replaced the sensors. I'm hoping I can get into this OBD2 scanner and maybe clear them. So, oh, it just cleared itself. Didn't even do anything. That's weird. Well, I'll get this thing fired up and then we'll see how we go. Well, I've tried to connect 2 or 3 times now. I've turned the ignition on and off a bunch of times. It doesn't want to have a bar of it, so it won't let me connect to this Mini. However, the light is gone, so I guess if I start this thing up, we should get rid of all the lights. So with it running, there's no engine light, there's no battery light, there's no nothing. The only light we have is the handbrake, which if I put my foot on the brake and take the handbrake off, we've got no dash lights now. So that's excellent. Obviously the brake pad sensor was the issue. It just needed some time to reset. So the last issue with this Mini is the windows on the doors do not roll down. So when you click the button, you can hear a relay in here somewhere clicking, but nothing happens. It doesn't even try and move. So I've just undone the screws for the door card. I'm going to try and take the door card off and just see if something's unplugged or come loose or something nice and simple. I'm not really sure how deep I can really dig into this and how much I'll be able to fix, but if there's something simple, I'll be able to fix it up. So I've dug into the door panel here, taken it off, had a look at the window regulator and everything seems happy and fine. So I did a bit of research on Google, and everyone says to just punch the door whilst pressing the button, which sounds really dumb. If you punch there where those two screws are, so between the two speakers, with the switch pressed in, it'll free up the relay and come back to life, apparently. So that works now. I'm not proud of that solution, but it worked. Shall we see if it works again? So I can't believe this worked on the other side, but when I push the switch, nothing happens. I can hear the relays clicking, but I can't get the window to move. So apparently, if you just push the button down and hit this, like hold the button down and punch there, it'll come to good. So a couple of thumps, press the button. Why does that work? That is so silly. Good job, BMW. I mean, at least it works, so that's great. All right, so I don't believe that worked, but it did. So all that does is free up the relay inside the window motor, apparently. So this isn't a permanent fix, this is just a temporary fix. Postman's rocked up. So that's it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to buy this thing, hit me up. We've got 9 grand on it, our nearest offer. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week.